The seaside bakery smelled of fresh bread and cinnamon every morning before dawn. Victoria Hayes had grown used to the rhythm of kneading dough, the warmth of ovens, and the way flour dusted her apron like snow. She worked quietly, efficiently, always with one eye on the clock, because she needed to pick up Lily. From the neighbor's house before school started, the town of Harborview was small enough that everyone knew everyone's business. They knew Victoria lived in the tiny apartment above the bookstore. They knew she worked 2 jobs, and they definitely knew about the little girl with bright eyes who called her mama. Even though whispers suggested the truth was more complicated than that, Victoria had learned to live with the whispers. 5 years ago, on a freezing winter evening, she had found a baby wrapped in a thin blanket outside the bakery's back door. The note pinned to the blanket said only one word in shaky handwriting: "Please, no one had come forward. No family claimed the child." And when Victoria held that tiny, shivering life in her arms, something inside her shifted forever. She named her Lily after the flowers that grew wild near the harbor. It's beautiful and resilient. Life was hard, but it was theirs. Until the day Catherine Sterling walked into the bakery, Victoria recognized her immediately. Everyone in Harborview knew the Sterling family. They owned half the coastline, funded the hospital, and lived in the sprawling estate on the cliffs overlooking the ocean. But Catherine Sterling looked different from the photographs in the society pages. She looked tired, fragile, as if life itself had worn her thin. Catherine ordered tea and sat by the window for an hour, watching Victoria work. When the morning rush ended, she approached the counter with a gentle smile. "You're Rebecca's daughter, aren't you?" Catherine asked softly. Victoria's hands stilled on the dishcloth. Her mother had passed away when she was 16, leaving her alone in the world except for scattered memories of laughter and lavender perfume. "I knew your mother," Catherine continued. "We grew up together. She was my dearest friend." The words hung in the air between them. Victoria's throat tightened. "I have something important to discuss with you," Catherine said, "but not here. Would you come to my home tomorrow evening?" "I'll send a car." Victoria wanted to refuse. She didn't belong in that world of mansions and privilege. But something in Catherine's eyes, a quiet desperation, made her agree. The Sterling estate was even more magnificent than Victoria had imagined. Crystal chandeliers cast rainbow patterns across marble floors. Paintings that belonged in museums lined the walls. And in the center of it all stood Nathan Sterling. He was tall, impeccably dressed in a dark suit that probably cost more than Victoria's yearly rent. His face was handsome but cold, carved from the same marble as his family's fortune. When Catherine introduced them, his handshake was brief, professional, devoid of warmth. "Victoria, please sit," Catherine said, gesturing to a velvet sofa. "I need to ask something of you. Something that may sound impossible." Over the next hour, Catherine explained everything. How Rebecca had once saved her life when they were teenagers. How Catherine had promised to always protect Rebecca's daughter if she ever needed help. How Catherine's illness was progressing faster than the doctors had hoped. And how she wanted to ensure Victoria and Lily would never struggle again. "I want you to marry my son," Catherine said simply. The room seemed to tilt. Victoria glanced at Nathan, whose expression had turned to stone. "Mother, we discussed this," Nathan said, his voice tight with controlled frustration. "You cannot simply arrange marriages like we're living in the 19th century. "I'm not arranging anything," Catherine replied calmly. "I'm fulfilling a promise to my oldest friend. Rebecca's daughter deserves security, protection, and a name that will shield her from the cruelty of judgment." Victoria found her voice, though it trembled. "Mrs. Sterling, I appreciate your kindness to my mother, but I cannot accept this. Marriage should be built on feelings, not obligations." And yet, Catherine said gently, "Some of the strongest foundations are built on promises kept." Nathan stood abruptly, walking to the window that overlooked the darkening ocean. "This is absurd. I run a billion-dollar company. I don't have time for marriage, especially not to a stranger." "Then make time," Catherine said, and for the first time her voice carried the steel of authority. "I have never asked you for anything, Nathan. I raised you to understand honor and duty. I am asking you now." The silence stretched long and painful. Victoria felt like an intruder in a family drama she didn't understand. She stood to leave, but Catherine caught her hand. please, think about it. For Lily's sake, if not your own." The mention of her daughter stopped Victoria cold. Every sacrifice she had made, every double shift, every night she had cried quietly so Lily wouldn't hear, was all for that little girl's future. Nathan turned from the window, his face unreadable. "If I agree to this, and I'm not saying I am, there would be conditions. This would be a business arrangement. No expectations of affection. You would have your own space, your own life. The marriage would be in name only, at least initially." Victoria lifted her chin, meeting his cold gaze with quiet dignity. "I would never expect love from someone who clearly has no room for it in his heart. But I would expect respect." Something flickered in Nathan's eyes. Surprise, perhaps, or reluctant admiration. "Give me 3 days to consider this," Victoria said. "I need to think about what's truly best for my daughter." As the car drove her home through the dark streets of Harborview, Victoria pressed her forehead against the cool window. The ocean stretched endlessly beside the road, powerful and mysterious. She thought about promises made and promises kept. She thought about her mother, who had apparently once saved the life of a wealthy woman. And she thought about Lily, who deserved every opportunity that love and security could provide. 3 days later, Victoria called Catherine Sterling and said one word: yes. The wedding was scheduled for a Saturday in early autumn, when the coastal air turned crisp and the ocean reflected silver light. Nathan had insisted on a small ceremony, but Catherine's definition of small meant 200 guests, a string quartet, and enough white roses to perfume the entire estate. Victoria stood in the bridal suite, staring at her reflection in a floor-length mirror. The dress Catherine had chosen was exquisite, layers of ivory silk that cascaded like water, with delicate lace sleeves that made her feel both elegant and exposed. A stylist had arranged her dark hair in soft waves, adorned with tiny pearl pins that caught the light. "Mama, you look like the princesses in my storybooks," Lily whispered, her small hand gripping Victoria's. Victoria knelt down, careful not to wrinkle the dress, and cupped her daughter's face. "You're the prettiest one here, sweetheart." Lily wore a pale pink dress with a satin ribbon, her hair in careful ringlets. She looked so happy, so innocent, completely unaware of the complexity surrounding this day. Victoria's heart ached with protective love. A soft knock interrupted the moment. Catherine entered, radiant despite her illness, wearing a champagne-colored gown that spoke of old money and timeless grace. "It's time," Catherine said gently. Then added, "Rebecca would be so proud of the woman you've become." Tears threatened, but Victoria blinked them back. She couldn't afford to be weak today. The ceremony took place in the estate's garden, where an arch of white roses framed the ocean view. Guests filled rows of chairs, their designer clothes and jeweled accessories glittering in the afternoon sun. Victoria recognized several faces from magazines and news broadcasts: business moguls, politicians, socialites who had never set foot in a place like her bakery. As she walked down the aisle, holding Lily's hand instead of a bouquet, she heard the whispers clearly. "That's the bakery girl, can you believe it? I heard the child isn't even hers biologically, Nathan Sterling marrying a single mother. It's charity disguised as matrimony. Catherine must have forced this arrangement." Each word felt like a small cut, but Victoria kept her head high. She had survived worse than gossip. At the altar, Nathan waited, looking devastating in a tailored black tuxedo. His expression was carefully neutral, revealing nothing. When their eyes met, Victoria saw not warmth, but resignation. The officiant began with traditional words about love and commitment, phrases that felt hollow given their circumstances. When it came time for vows, Nathan's voice was steady and emotionless. "I, Nathan Sterling, take you, Victoria Hayes, as my wife. I promise to provide for you and honor the commitment we make today before these witnesses." The words were correct but cold, stripped of any genuine feeling. Victoria felt the weight of every judgmental stare pressing against her back. Her turn came. She forced her voice to remain calm. "I, Victoria Hayes, take you, Nathan Sterling, as my husband. I promise to respect this union and uphold the values of honesty and integrity that brought us here." They exchanged rings, simple platinum bands that felt heavy with obligation. When the officiant pronounced them married, Nathan's kiss was brief and perfunctory, barely more than a brush of lips. The applause that followed sounded polite but distant. The reception was held in the estate's grand ballroom, where champagne flowed and a live band played jazz standards. Victoria felt like an actress in a play she hadn't rehearsed for. Guests approached with congratulations that barely masked their curiosity and judgment. She smiled until her cheeks ached. Making small talk with people whose names she would forget by morning, Nathan remained by her side for photographs, but disappeared into conversations. With business associates, as soon as propriety allowed, Catherine circulated among guests, her pride in the union evident despite her fatigue. Lily danced with other children, oblivious to the undercurrents of tension. As evening descended, Victoria found herself alone on a terrace overlooking the ocean. The sound of waves crashing against rocks below provided a welcome escape from the orchestrated celebration inside. "Escaping already?" Nathan's voice came from behind her. She turned to find him holding 2 glasses of champagne, his tie loosened slightly. He handed her one without waiting for a response. "I thought you were busy networking," Victoria said. "Accepting the glass, but not drinking. I've fulfilled my social obligations for the evening," he replied, leaning against the stone balustrade. "Catherine is pleased," which was the point of all this. The dismissive tone stung more than Victoria expected. "Is that all this is to you? An obligation fulfilled?" Nathan looked at her then, really looked, and for a moment something flickered in his eyes. What else could it be? "We barely know each other, and perhaps we should try," Victoria said quietly. "If we're going to share a name, we might as well attempt civility beyond public appearances." He studied her face as if seeing her for the first time. "You're not what I expected. What did you expect? Someone more desperate? More grateful? Someone less honest," he admitted. "Most people in my world speak in carefully constructed lies." Before Victoria could respond, Catherine appeared at the terrace doors. "There you are. Guests are beginning to leave. We should see them off together." The remainder of the evening passed in a blur of goodbyes and well-wishes that felt increasingly hollow. By the time the last guest departed, Victoria's feet ached from unfamiliar heels, and her face hurt from forced smiling. Catherine kissed them both goodnight, her eyes shining with satisfaction and exhaustion. "Your rooms are prepared. Victoria, you're in the east wing, second door on the left. Nathan will show you." The walk through the mansion's corridors was silent, except for the soft echo of their footsteps on marble floors. When they reached Victoria's assigned room, Nathan opened the door, but didn't enter. "Everything you need should be here," he said formally. "If you require anything, there's a staff button by the bed." Victoria stepped inside, taking in the enormous space with its canopy bed, sitting area, and doors that led to what appeared to be a private bathroom and walk-in closet. "Where is your room?" she asked. "The west wing. Opposite end of the house?" The physical distance felt symbolic. Victoria turned to face him, suddenly tired of pretense. "Nathan, I know you didn't choose this. Neither did I, but we made a promise today, and I keep my promises. I won't expect affection, but I won't accept contempt either. If we're going to make this work, even as a business arrangement, we need basic respect." He regarded her with an expression she couldn't read. "You have more courage than people give you credit for." "I've had to develop it," she replied simply. Nathan nodded slowly. "Good night, Victoria. Good night." As the door closed, Victoria sank onto the edge of the enormous bed, still wearing her wedding dress. Through the window, she could see the ocean stretching endlessly under moonlight. She thought about the small apartment above the bookstore, the simple life she had left behind, and the complicated future she had entered in the hallway. Nathan stood motionless for a long moment before walking away. He had expected to feel nothing on his wedding day, and yet something about Victoria's quiet strength unsettled him. She wasn't playing the role of grateful charity case that everyone expected. She was honest, direct, and surprisingly dignified. For the first time in years, Nathan felt something stir beneath the carefully constructed walls around his heart. It felt uncomfortable, like a muscle too long unused. He pushed the feeling away and headed to his study, where work awaited. Work was safe. Work was predictable. Work didn't require him to feel anything at all, but as he sat at his desk, staring at contracts that suddenly seemed meaningless, his mind kept returning to a woman in an ivory dress, standing on a terrace, asking for nothing more than basic human respect, and for reasons he couldn't explain. That simple request felt like the most challenging thing anyone had ever asked of him. The first 2 weeks of marriage passed in careful routine. Victoria established a rhythm within the vast Sterling estate, waking early to have breakfast with Lily before the little girl attended the prestigious private school Catherine had enrolled her in. Nathan left for his office before dawn and returned after dinner, their paths crossing only during formal meals with Catherine. Yet something subtle was shifting. Nathan began arriving home earlier, finding excuses to walk through the garden where Victoria often read while Lily played. Their conversations remained brief, but grew less formal. He asked about her day. She inquired about his business concerns. Small kindnesses appeared like unexpected flowers after rain. One evening, Victoria found Nathan in the library, surrounded by leather-bound books and the smell of old paper. Lily had followed him there, chattering about a story her teacher had read about knights and dragons. And then the night saved everyone. Even though he was scared, Lily concluded, her eyes wide with excitement. Nathan listened with unexpected patience, his usually stern expressions softening. Being brave doesn't mean not being scared. It means doing what's right, even when you're afraid. Like Mama, Lily said confidently. She's always brave. Nathan's gaze lifted to Victoria, who stood in the doorway. Something unspoken passed between them, a recognition of shared vulnerability. Your mama is very brave, Nathan agreed quietly. That night marked a turning point. Nathan began joining them for dinner regularly, engaging in conversations that felt increasingly genuine. He taught Lily about constellations, pointing them out through the library's telescope. He asked Victoria about her dreams beyond survival, listening intently when she admitted she had once wanted to open her own bakery. Why didn't you? He asked. Dreams require resources I never had, she replied simply. Survival took priority. Nathan said nothing. But 2 days later, a lawyer arrived with papers for a commercial property lease downtown. The building had a storefront perfect for a bakery, with an apartment above. I don't understand, Victoria said. Staring at the documents, consider it an investment, Nathan replied, though his tone suggested something more personal. You have talent. You should use it. Victoria's eyes filled with tears she tried to hide. Why are you doing this? Nathan hesitated, then spoke with careful honesty. Because watching you sacrifice everything for a child who isn't biologically yours, while asking nothing for yourself, makes me wonder if I've spent my entire life measuring the wrong things. The confession hung between them, raw and unexpected. Victoria reached out, her hand briefly touching his arm. The contact was electric, sending awareness through both of them. Thank you, she whispered. From that moment, the walls between them began crumbling. They started taking evening walks along the estate grounds, talking about everything from childhood memories to philosophical questions about what made a life meaningful. Nathan's cold exterior melted, revealing a man who had armored himself against feeling because loss had once devastated him. My father died when I was 12, he told her one night, as they sat on a bench overlooking the ocean. He was everything to me. When he was gone, I decided emotions were liabilities. If you don't feel, you can't be hurt. You also can't truly live, Victoria said softly. I lost my mother young too. The pain never completely fades, but closing yourself off doesn't honor their memory. Living fully does. Nathan turned to her, moonlight illuminating his face. You're changing everything I thought I knew. Good, she replied, smiling. The kiss happened naturally, tenderly, without the awkwardness of their wedding day. Nathan's hand cupped her face with surprising gentleness, and Victoria felt her heart open in ways she had protected for years. When they pulled apart, both were breathless. I think I'm falling in love with my own wife, Nathan murmured. Wonder in his voice? I think I've been falling since you showed Lily the constellations, Victoria admitted. Their relationship deepened quickly after that. Nathan began working from home more often, stealing moments with Victoria between meetings. They laughed together, really laughed, over silly things like Lily's mispronunciations and the estate chef's dramatic reactions to kitchen disasters. Catherine watched with obvious joy. Her health seemingly improved by witnessing genuine affection blooming between them. But happiness, Victoria had learned, often invited catastrophe. The scandal broke on a Tuesday morning. Nathan was in his study when his phone erupted with calls. His assistant's panicked voice cut through the chaos. "Sir, there's a story breaking. Someone leaked documents claiming Lily isn't adopted, that Victoria had an affair with a Sterling Industries employee and fabricated the abandonment story." Nathan's blood turned cold. He pulled up the news on his computer, watching as his private life became public entertainment. Photographs, some clearly manipulated, showed Victoria with a man Nathan vaguely recognized from his company. Headlines screamed betrayal, deception, gold-digging schemes. Social media exploded with judgment. Comments ranged from cruel mockery to vicious attacks on Victoria's character. News vans appeared at the estate gates within hours. The worst came when Catherine, while watching television in her bedroom, saw a particularly brutal interview suggesting Victoria had trapped Nathan into marriage through elaborate lies. The shock and distress triggered a severe episode. Her nurse found her collapsed on the floor, barely conscious. Nathan arrived at the hospital simultaneously with Victoria, who had been downtown inspecting her new bakery space when Catherine's nurse called. They stood on opposite sides of the emergency room waiting area, the chasm between them suddenly vast. "How could you not tell me the truth?" Nathan said, his voice low and sharp as a blade. Victoria's face drained of color. "What truth?" "Nathan, I told you everything." Every word was honest. "Explain why a man claiming to be Lily's father has contacted my lawyers demanding money." "I don't know what you're talking about," Victoria said, her voice breaking. "I found Lily outside the bakery 5 years ago. There was no father, no affair, no lies." "Everyone has a price," Nathan said bitterly, all his old cynicism flooding back. "I just didn't think yours would cost my mother's health." The accusation hit Victoria like a physical blow. She stared at the man she had begun to love, seeing only the cold stranger from their wedding day. "You promised me respect," she whispered. "But at the first sign of trouble, you believe strangers over your own wife." She turned and walked away, her shoulders shaking with suppressed sobs. Nathan watched her go. Anger and doubt warring inside him, Catherine survived the episode but remained hospitalized for observation. Over the next 2 days, Nathan buried himself in investigation, determined to find the truth. His lawyers traced the leaked documents. His security team analyzed the photographs. His investigators tracked the man claiming paternity. What they discovered shattered Nathan's assumptions entirely. The scandal had been orchestrated by Marcus Whitmore, a business rival who had lost a major development contract to Sterling Industries 6 months earlier. The photographs were expertly doctored composites. The supposed biological father was an actor Whitmore had hired, coached with just enough real information about Victoria to seem credible. The abandonment story was genuine. Hospital records confirmed an anonymous infant had been brought to emergency services by Victoria Hayes 5 years ago. Social services documents verified her adoption process. Every piece of Victoria's story was true. Nathan had doubted an innocent woman because he had forgotten how to trust. He found Victoria in the small apartment above her bakery, packing boxes. She didn't look up when he entered. "I'm moving back here," she said flatly. "Catherine is stable. Your obligation to your mother's promise is fulfilled. We can arrange a quiet divorce. Victoria, please listen." "No." Her voice cracked. "You listen. I have spent my entire life being judged by people who knew nothing about me. I accepted this marriage knowing it wasn't based on love, hoping we might build something real. And we did. Or I thought we did. But the moment the world questioned me, you believed their lies over everything you knew about who I am." Nathan moved closer, his own eyes bright with unshed tears. "You're right. I failed you completely. The investigation proved everything you said was true. Marcus Whitmore orchestrated the entire scandal. He hired actors, fabricated evidence, All because I beat him in a business deal. Victoria finally looked at him, her expression guarded. So you believe me now, because investigators confirmed my story? Not because you know my character? The question pierced straight through him. I should have believed you immediately. I should have defended you publicly from the start. Instead, I reverted to the scared, cynical man who thinks everyone has ulterior motives. He knelt before her, taking her hands despite her resistance. I fell in love with the woman who teaches my mother's grandson about kindness, who dreams of feeding people with bread she bakes herself, who saved a child not because it benefited her, but because it was right. I know who you are, Victoria. And I'm terrified I've lost you because I forgot that knowledge when I needed it most. Tears streamed down Victoria's face. You hurt me, Nathan, deeply. And I will spend however long it takes proving that I'm worthy of the second chance I don't deserve. Before Victoria could respond, Nathan's phone rang. Catherine's name flashed on the screen. His mother's voice was weak but clear. Tell me you're fixing this, Nathan. Tell me you haven't destroyed the best thing that ever happened to this family. I'm trying, Mother. Hey, try harder. That woman loved you when you gave her nothing but coldness. She loved you when the world judged her. If you let her go, you're a fool. After the call ended, Nathan held out his hand to Victoria. Come back to the estate. Not as an obligation or arrangement. Come back as my wife, my partner, the woman I love. Victoria studied his face, seeing genuine remorse and desperate hope. Love means trusting even when evidence suggests doubt. Can you give me that? Yes, he said without hesitation. I swear it. The reconciliation wasn't immediate or easy. Victoria returned to the estate but insisted on honesty in all things. Nathan held a press conference publicly exposing Whitmore's scheme and defending Victoria with fierce protectiveness. He sued for defamation, donating the settlement to children's charities in Lily's name. More importantly, he showed Victoria through daily actions that his trust was genuine. He supported her bakery opening, standing beside her during the grand celebration. He legally adopted Lily, tears streaming down his face as he signed papers that made her, officially, his daughter. 3 months later, with Catherine's health restored and Lily thriving, Nathan and Victoria planned a second ceremony. This time, there were no society guests or business obligations. Just family and close friends gathered in the estate garden as autumn leaves fell like blessings. I, Nathan Sterling, take you, Victoria, as my wife, he said, his voice thick with emotion. Not out of duty, but out of love. I promise to trust you, honor you, and spend every day proving I'm worthy of the gift you've given me. Victoria smiled through happy tears. I, Victoria Sterling, take you, Nathan, as my husband. I promise to love you not despite your flaws, but through them. We found each other in obligation, but we're choosing each other in love. The kiss they shared was full of promise, passion, and the knowledge that the strongest foundations are built not just on promises kept, but on forgiveness given and trust rebuilt as they turned to face their small gathering. Lily rushed forward, wrapping her arms around both of them. We're a real family now, right? Nathan lifted his daughter, holding her between himself and Victoria. We've always been a real family, sweetheart. Now the whole world knows it. Catherine watched from her chair, tears of joy streaming down her face. Rebecca's daughter had found not just security, but genuine love. The promise made at a deathbed had transformed into something beautiful and true. That evening, as the celebration continued, Nathan and Victoria stood once again on the terrace overlooking the ocean. Do you regret it? Nathan asked. Everything that happened? Victoria leaned against him, feeling the steady beat of his heart. The pain was real, but it taught us both something essential. Love without trust is fragile. But trust rebuilt after betrayal is stronger than anything. I will never doubt you again, he promised. And I will never stop reminding you who we are, she replied. Smiling, the waves crashed against the rocks below, constant and eternal. Above them, stars emerged in the darkening sky, the same constellations Nathan had shown Lily weeks ago. Everything had changed, yet the foundation remained solid. A promise made in grief had become a love story written in forgiveness. And in the end, that was the most beautiful transformation of all.